Did you start seeds and find that your plants got leggy, where they're tall and skinny and kind of falling over? It's a common problem. Let me show you how to fix it. All right, first we need to gather our supplies. So you're gonna need some pots. These are 4-inch pots. I'll link them for you. They're from Amazon. You're gonna need plant markers. Good old popsicle sticks will do. And a waterproof marker. This is a garden marker I found on Amazon. That's all you need. Grab you some potting soil and we'll get going. So you want to start by removing the seedlings from their current home. You can see these are falling over. They're super leggy. So we're going to pinch it at the bottom, right here. We're going to pinch to loosen and it should lift right out, okay? And then all we're gonna do is, I've got my pot, it's about half full with dirt. Dig a hole all the way to the bottom in your pot, and we're gonna bury that tomato as deeply as we can, because as much of the dirt that touches the stem will root. So let me get it potted and I'll show you. So here's our finished plant, and you can tell only the top little bit is sticking out. That's what we're going for. Bury that stem. And now we're going to keep going and do the rest of these. While we're talking about seed starting, let's talk about how you transition these guys outside. So my seedlings have been under grow lights in the house. I started these in February, so they are about a month old. And we won't plant these in the garden until either late April or the very beginning of May. So they've still got a ways to go and a ways to develop. But you see how delicate they look? The stems are thin. They're just not real sturdy. That's because they've never been exposed to wind or sun. All they've had is an artificial environment with the grow lights. So what we need to do is help these plants to adjust to their new surroundings. So for me, that means these guys are going to spend about an hour a day in the sunshine in the early morning or the evening, starting about maybe a week, 2 weeks before I plant them in the garden. So as these guys spend time out in the sun, what happens is they're going to get stronger. They're going to get used to the wind, and they're going to be a little hardier. So if you were to take a plant right out from under your grow lights and you were to go and plant it in the garden, like if I planted this in the garden today, chances are really pretty good, even if it stays warm enough, that this guy is not going to make it. The shock of moving from indoors to outdoors is probably going to kill it. So you've got to ease them in. It's a gradual transition. Think of it as kind of an ornery toddler that doesn't do transitions well. Anybody had one of those? I did. So you got to prepare it. You got to get it used to what's coming and kind of talk to it even about the new environment. Do y'all talk to your plants? Please tell me I'm not the only one. Anyway, so there's our little tomato starts. We're going to keep potting more up and I'll show you the finished product. Here's a look at some tomato plants that we potted up last week. Look at the difference. Look how tall that guy is. They start to grow really quickly once you pot these up. So these guys are now just kind of sitting out here getting used to the sun, and they're gonna move into their permanent house in the greenhouse today when I finish potting everything up. One more quick lesson. How do you know when it's time to actually pot them up? So when you look at a tomato plant, when it first comes up, you're gonna see two little leaves. Those are called the seed leaves. They're kind of oval, just plain little leaves. They don't look like anything extraordinary. But these are the true leaves of a tomato plant. Do you see what those look like? They're kind of three leaves. These are true leaves, and when your plant has at least two true leaves, you're ready to pot them up to a bigger pot. And then that allows them to get better nutrition and better root development so that they're healthy and strong and ready when it's time to put them out here in the garden. As you work, you may notice that there's some little plants that just don't look very healthy. This little flat of San Marzanos has really been struggling. You can tell the leaves are kind of purple. They needed more light. The grow light just wasn't cutting it anymore. I think most of these guys will be fine once I pot them up. But if they look really terrible, like this guy, don't plant those. They're just gonna die. Pick your strongest seedlings. It's always better to start more seeds than what you actually want to plant in the garden, because first of all, they might not even all come up, right? But second of all, even if they do all germinate, not all your plants are going to be strong and healthy. That's normal. Don't freak out. Just know to pick the best ones and let the best ones keep a home in your garden. Okay, once your seedlings are all potted up, your next step, give them a drink of water. What do you do if you have multiple plants in the same little pod? Well, so right away you want to look and see, is anybody damaged? Yes, so we're just gonna pinch this guy off and throw that out. The two that are left are both in good shape, so just delicately untangle and then very gently, like kind of start to tear apart. And then just be gentle and tease, and the root balls will come apart. And now they're ready to go in two separate pots. Don't be afraid if you need to like wrap your stem a little bit to get this guy down in there. It's not gonna hurt anything as long as your stem doesn't break. And if they do break, I mean, it's not ideal, but it's okay. Sometimes they still live. And you're always going to lose a few during this process. That's normal. So I think sometimes when you see people do this, like on YouTube or on TV or Instagram or whatever, it looks so complicated. Like, how do they know what to do? Listen, there's no magic answer to this stuff. You're going to learn what works for you just by experimenting. And after growing tomatoes for a couple of years, I've learned that up potting works for my garden. It gives me stronger, healthier plants. But everybody's different, so do what works for you. Here's a good example of seed leaves versus real leaves. When your seeds first sprout, you're gonna see these regular leaves. This is a tomato plant. But real tomato leaves look like this. So those first leaves, when you are potting up your tomato plants or planting them outside, just pinch those off. You don't need them anymore, because the big leaves are now doing all the work of photosynthesis for the plant. So that's the difference.